Okay, so thanks for preparing these slides, Kate. Let's jump to the first one. I'll do a bit of a whistle-stop tour through some of the key moments. So back in 2011, I was doing some consultancy work for Berghaus, and I was working with their kind of directors on marketing strategy, and I became aware that they wanted to sponsor a major UK event. And I was doing some work for them on the concept of that. At the same time, I was reading Feet in the Clouds, which has an amazing, really inspiring chapter about the Dragon's Back race. And I kind of put two and two together, and I was like, Dragon's Back race, Berghaus, and kind of took the concept to them as a concept. And they were like, yeah, we'll sponsor it. I then spent several months tracking down Ian Wardle, who was the original 1992 organizer, and eventually met with him in South Wales, kind of shared with him my vision for resurrecting the event. And he kind of gave me the blessing to kind of organize the 2012 event. However, before all of that was the 92 event. So Ian Wardle has just left the Paras, and he was very fascinated in long distance walking challenges, which he did a lot of himself. And he had this idea of the kind of the Cumbrian Traverse of Wales, which is effectively the original Dragon's Back route. Having just left the parachute regiment, Ian managed to get a company of soldiers to support his logistics. He got a jet, some of you might remember them, jet garages you might see around still occasionally, to sponsor the event. And he invited really the best ultra runners, mountain runners of their day to the event. And I mean, the story of how it was won is brilliant, and I'd recommend Feet in the Clouds to anyone. But the bottom line was Helen Whitaker, now DMN Hades then, and Martin Stone as a mixed pair won. And they beat some of the best long distance ultra runners, mountain runners in the world at the time. And it's a really notable achievement because Helen, as part of that pair, you know, she beat, as a female, the top male runners. And the race became legendary for that reason and for its difficulty. There was a very, very high percentage of dropouts. It's a very challenging race logistically and physically for the runners. Should we jump forward one, Kate? So when I resurrected the event in 2012, I personally like difficult challenges, whether that's running, climbing, work-wise, and I quickly became fascinated by the logistics of making the Dragon's Back race happen. And I didn't have the support of the army, but I had an amazing crew of volunteers. And I think at that time, it makes me laugh, we had one overloaded panel van full of kit, which we managed to deliver the event with. Whereas now the convoy of vehicles for the Dragon's Back will probably be 30 panel vans or something like that, a kit that moves with the event. So it's changed a lot. So for that 20th anniversary edition in 2012, I did change the route, and much of it was inspired by, or the vast majority of it was inspired by the original route, but I definitely wanted to stay more on the summits than in the valleys where the original route was. And I also thought it would be fun to just do all the Welsh 3000s on day one. We don't do that anymore. It just makes the dust start just a bit too hard, but I think the purists understood where I was coming from. So shall we jump forward, Kate? So there's actually a 3-year gap between 2012 and 2015, and that is because the 2012 race nearly broke me. It was both like logistically demanding, physically demanding, financially, it ran at quite a significant loss. And I really underestimated the logistics and costs of putting on the event. And it was like, I definitely needed a long break after that before I decided to go again. And then I thought, well, maybe there was a lot of appetite. Lots of people are asking me, would there be another edition? And so yeah, in 2015, we had edition 3, second edition of the modern era. That was won by Jasmine Paris and Jim Mann. And it ran much more smoothly. Maybe that was because Kate was helping me work on the event. And when I saw when I saw all the applications for volunteers come in, and we've always had a very strong kind of support team helping with the event, I can remember flicking through the application, spotting Kate's and thinking, this is someone who looks like they'll be pretty useful to have around. And I kind of made you my lieutenant, didn't I, Kate? So, okay, so 2017, the event grows, pretty much doubles in size, and we have a very clear idea that we will organise the event every 2 years, so biennially, with our other expedition race, Cape Wrath Ultra, happening on the opposite years. In 2017, the event grows. It was very exciting. The logistics were smoother. The whole operation, just went much more smoothly. Then in 2019, which is the last edition of the event, I think the concept and the team was very bedded in at that point, and we definitely delivered a much smoother event. And you can see from the summary of those numbers there, every year we've had more participants start, more participants finish, and actually gradually the percentage of finishers has been creeping up, which is great. I think every edition so far has been very lucky to have pretty good weather overall, and I think we are kind of waiting for a bad weather edition, and I think that finish rate will change quite a lot when we have a week of poor weather. And of course, in 2021, we have got an extra day to do as well, and that does change the nature of the race quite significantly for everybody. So should we jump to the next slide, Kate? So just a bit of a summary for 2021. Actually, back in 2012, I wanted to do a 6th day and go to the south coast of Wales, but I felt that given that the race had originally finished after 5 days, it seemed a bit of a stretch to both resurrect and re-event the race in one go. So I stuck more or less with the original course. And this idea of the 6th day has kind of stayed with me. And I felt for 2021, the event had matured and had enough momentum that we could kind of complete the logical journey. And we'll now be finishing in Cardiff Castle, and it's a truly spectacular venue to finish in. And yeah, it's a really exciting change. It does make it harder. And yeah, there's no marked route to follow. So you are reliant on navigation, be that with a map and compass and or with the help of a GPS. It's pretty epic. That's just reading Kate's words there. The emphasis is very much on the participants to look after yourselves. That's kind of on the hill. In the camp, there's a lot of emphasis on self-care, treating your own blisters. Sure, we'll give you some advice and help if you need it, but it is a journey for you to complete and for us to facilitate. We're not going to hold your hand down the length of Wales. I think that's probably all I'll say, Kate, and probably hand to you.
So I would say, the Recce weekends, provided sort of quality training, on the ground training, on your feet, for long hours of a day, improving people's route knowledge, and slowly kind of building confidence and skills and sharing that with other runners. And just chatting to Megan prior to the session kicking off this evening, and Megan certainly said, hey, I still chat to my Dragon's Back race friends, and they're still in good contact with each other, so that there's a great kind of shared experience that grows through all the preparation that we do, as well as on the route itself. So a typical day on a Recce event, I kind of thought, a real shame, but I'm going to have to kind of morph the Recce events into kind of just standalone one-day options. Some of the days do happen on a Saturday and a Sunday, for example, but you can book on to either the Saturday or the Sunday, or you could book onto both days. But I've just had to change the fact that I'm not, Royal Adventures isn't providing any sort of accommodation options, but we will will help to kind of transport folk. So we will meet outside. Outside is a great space to kind of for people to gather in. We know, transmission rates for people moving and operating outside are so very, very low that it's a great place to be in. So we'll be outside all day. You might find your own accommodation the night before, or you might be in a location where you can travel to the meeting location early in the morning. And we'll usually meet in a definable, easy to find sort of car park area where we can leave cars, or that there's sort of public transport options available if needed. And it will be a fairly early morning meet, about 7 o'clock-ish seems to work, sometimes a little bit later if we're not trying to squeeze in a big long route. At one point, obviously, the weather and the time of year might have dictated at what time we meet, but most of our Recce events are now happening, sort of late spring into summer. So meeting early in the morning, absolutely fine. And after initial introductions, we'll kind of get together, so you all feel very, very secure and very clear of the plan for the day, what kit we'll be using, what kit you need, where we're going, and share that information, on mapping, etc. And yeah, we're prepared for all weathers. I think this is Megan again here, rah, in the snow.
I think actually on the one just in front, Kate, you can see the back of my bag.
Is that you there?
Yeah, that's me.
That's Carolyn.
It was awful.
So this is must have been in March, I think, or maybe a bit later, April. But yeah, we were kind of hit by some really wintry weather, which isn't unusual, kind of late spring. But we're out in it, and we'll use all our kit and equipment, and it's great practice for using everything that's in that tiny little bag that you're carrying on your back. And during the day, we move as a team, so we keep the team sort of fairly small. Probably about I try and kind of have one sort of mountain running guide leader like myself, with maybe between sort of 5 or 8 to 10 people, depending on the nature of the terrain. But you'll always be within a kind of a smallish, manageable team, and we sort of then can work with differences of paces, etc. But we'll always try and make time to kind of stop, have a look at the map, check where we are on the map, and where we are in on the route, so you can kind of gain a real sense of what the landscape looks like around you. And I think with the introduction of such amazing technology that we can use when we're kind of traveling in the mountains, and we've got access to GPX files on watches, on mobile phones, on GPS devices, I think it's also really great to spend a bit of time handling the paper map, and also relating that to your navigational kind of technology. So we do spend some time, as much as we are able to, given the fact that we also want to cover mileage on the days. And it's a chance to kind of use all our shiny kits. We've gone out and kind of invested in lots of kit and equipment, birthday presents, Christmas presents, and going out on a recce and traveling over the ground, either the route itself, or when you're on your own kind of personal runs in the hills. It's a great chance to use your kit in anger, as it were, for what it's really intended for. I'm just admitting some folk. And yeah, we so this is us moving up towards Pumlaman towards the end of day 3. So yeah, got a nice little team working together there, probably chit-chatting or not, going up the hill, as the case may be. But actually, the really nice thing about working through those Recce events in 2019 was actually how supportive and close, you know, people did come. So it makes the day enjoyable, and you can kind of share advice, share stories, info with each other, and get out in all sorts of weathers. I think this photo was an unusually awfully flooded day where we were recceing day 2 over the Molwinion Hills, and I think actually we weren't even able to get up to the summits that we were intending to, because sort of 70-80 mile an hour storm force winds and flooded roads, and it was pretty horrendous. But we made something of it and had a great kind of day's training in foul weather, which is actually really useful, because we all realized, you know, where your waterproofs leak, and those waterproof trousers are really annoying and they keep tripping me up, and I can't get this thing out of my bag, and my hood doesn't work, and all that kind of useful stuff. So getting out in bad weather as well as on the nice sunny days is absolutely integral to kind of surviving, I think, in kind of diverse sort of mountain and hill environments. We try and tend to follow the linear route, as you know, as per the Dragon's Back race route. Some logistics might see us having to do a bit of a circular journey, depending on where we can get picked up from in either taxi transport or mini coaches. But trying to stick to the route as faithfully as possible. And you know, as the route progresses over different days, you know, you get the chance to explore the different terrains of the different days, and I'd say they all have their own character. So I remember this photo on the left is we've just started a recce of day 4, so kind of heading into the Elan Valley, the Cambrian mountains, and I'd not come across this descent before, and this is me as a leader, and it was a really steep, slippery. It doesn't look as steep in the photo. It was steeper. I think this is Megan again. Is that you, Megan? I think
It is.
That was actually quite a steep descent, which had some real objective hazard, because there was a very steep ravine and a waterfall, you know, beneath us here, and actually there would be nothing to stop a kind of a small trip or a slip, and then, you know, one of us potentially tumbling and plopping over into the waterfall ravine. And I thought we'd left all of that kind of hazardous ground behind us on day 1 and day 2. So that was a real funky moment. So that's one to look out for at the start of day 4. So that's, you know, generally how they'll pan out, and hopefully, you know, a positive experience for everyone. So I wanted to move on to just look at Klebgork. Actually, I thought I'd take the opportunity, as I've got you here as a captured audience, with some nice slides, and it's not raining and it's not windy outside, so, you know, quite nice to kind of go onto the hill and have a little look at Klebgork. Brilliant. So what do we know about Klebgork? Well, it's pretty beautiful, isn't it? This is the ridge of Klebgork leading up to Ganeth and Snowdon, part of the Snowdon Horseshoe, a classic route that includes another peak to the left out of screen called Ohly. The Dragon's Back route does go over Ohly as well. So if you imagine, you know, 10, 20, 12,000 years ago, these bowls here and here were full of glacial ice, and as they receded down, you know, towards the valley bottoms and the coast, they kind of left this harder lying rock, this beautiful arête here. So this is what we call the east ridge of Klebgork. So below us, behind us, is our route from Penna Pass, and we've kind of come up the pig track, and we get to a clear junction of paths where we would turn right up to Klebgork and this eastern ridge, and it's facing slightly in an easterly direction, hence the East Ridge. So, but this red line will show the kind of logical progression of a bit of a scree path down here, really sort of fairly easygoing kind of mountainous path, fairly loose in places, but a path. Some walkers there actually. So we're kind of zigzagging. This makes its way quite happily up to what we call this rock band. And this is where the steeper scrambling would be found. And actually, once you're through that rock band, then you're back onto ground that is fairly straightforward to move on, although you are obviously higher and slightly more exposed either side as you gain height. But I would say that the steepest scrambling is just about here. But here is somewhere where you've got to be confident that you're happy kind of making onward progression. It's actually more difficult to come down at this point. So up is all good. And here we've got a couple of folk enjoying the recce that we ran. So I think this one was end of September. And actually these guys have just got above that rock band here. So there's still some great rock to travel over, grooves, ledges, and if you're staying on the crest of the ridge, you will always find the obvious places to put your hands and your feet. It will look worn, it will look kind of used, and if you find you're anywhere that looks damp, dark, mossy, loose, that's not the place to be. You want to be on the steep, better rock of the East Ridge. It's quite sort of shattered and broken, but easy to travel on. A bit slippery when it's wet, but you can see these folk here, they're using their hands. They've got at least 3 points of body contact touching the rock. They're not skipping and dancing over it. Most people are using hands and feet to aid climbing. So as I said, hands are really good. So we've dipped in at the we dipped in at the checkpoint on the top of the eastern ridge, and we're now kind of progressing along the narrow section of ridge. So this section of ridge here towards that narrow rock band, quartz rock band area. But yes, so can you see these folks? They're kind of down a little bit on the left hand side. They're not teetering over the ridge line in a tightrope fashion. You can come down on the left slightly with your hands along the ridge like a banister, and if there's a bit of wind or it's wet underfoot, then I would say that's a really secure body position to be in. That picture actually, other things to bear in mind is what the weather's doing. If it's kind of overcast, cloudy, a bit drizzly, layering up would be a good idea. We've got Ali and Charlie here. They pretty hardy chaps, but they layered up top layers because it was quite windy. It was quite windy on that day, but the wind was coming in a direction that actually it was kind of shearing round the ridge, and actually the ridge itself wasn't too windy, which a certain environmental condition that can happen. It can be a windy day down in the valley, but they made good progression on the ridge. But they're pretty well layered up, gloves, top layers, and keeping themselves steady and secure with their hands. The final pinnacle is can either be taken, you can kind of go up and over, as these folk here are doing. I think this is on a Welsh 3000s route that I'm on. So I'm up here and I can't really assist these folk. I've just gained confidence that they're actually really good movers and they're scrambling really well. They're confident. So I'm just kind of leading the way at this point. Or rather than ascending these kind of rocky kind of diagonal steps and popping over the top, actually there is a great little diversion on the left, which is sort of down here. This is on a very wet day on a Dragon's Back recce, also last September. And this is my good sort of colleague and friend, Lou Beetleston. We were working on the ridge together, and this is us just bypassing the pinnacles on the left-hand side. And that actually misses out these blocky steps. You have to descend down a little kind of gully. It's not even a gully, but just a little shallow depression on the ridge, and it gets you down into this sort of fairly easily traversable area. So these people are just sort of walking themselves along this rock and then round towards the end of the ridge. And then the continuation of the route, a lovely path. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief after they've completed Klebgork, and you get to a very grassy flat area called Klebgork, and a nice progression along this grassy ridge until you get to the second little scramble zone, which is to ascend the ridge to Garnet again. So yeah, just a little note on the route here, a couple of options. You're looking at this fin of rock, basically. It's blocky, it's fun, it's like scrambling up a big chunky rocky playground. It's not without its consequence, but nowhere are you anywhere as exposed to consequence as you are on Klebgork. But you'll enjoy the scrambling, but keep to the crest of the ridge where the red line is. It looks fearsome, but it's actually like this in nature. Lots of blocky, rocky steps that are easy to tackle, quite athletic and fun. But sticking to the ridge means that you kind of don't stray off onto steeper ground on the left or the right. And so while you're on this kind of ground, my other advice would be to kind of don't forget things, like what layers you're wearing, keep yourself warm if you're moving slower, and keep yourself hydrated and eating and drinking, because all of the adrenaline and the brain power you're using on terrain like this will get used up really quickly. So feed yourself, look after yourself, and I would like to say that everyone should really enjoy their route across Klebgork. So wanted to take this opportunity to speak with Megan and Dan, but here we have Dan and Megan professionally shot on Klebgork during day one of their race, and now they're proud owners of this lovely trophy down here, their baby dragon. And see some stunning weather on Klebgork. There you go. And Megan looked like she's nearly running.
It was faking it for the camera, Kate.
Good effort. Brilliant. If you're both happy, I will. Here's a question for you both, and I'll kind of ask Megan to answer first, and then I'll ask Dan, and then we'll move on to the next question. Is that cool? Yes. Running and training. How long had you been running and training for before entering?
So I'd probably been running kind of ultra distance for about 6 years before I entered Dragon's Back. But I'd been doing a lot of long distance walking before that. So kind of transitioned from the walking to running about 6 years before. Did my first running ultra, which was the Brecon 10 Peaks, back in the early days. And 6 years later, find myself at Dragon's Back.
Awesome. And yeah, so your general activity and fitness background, so a lot of mountain walking, into running. Any other sports or anything?
I'd done a lot of scrambling and some kind of very low level climbing.
Yeah.
So was quite comfortable with the kind of rocky terrain, just how quickly I could move over it in a race environment.
Yeah. Okay. And I think I gleaned that from all the smart kit that Megan kept turning out in every weekend. I was like, man, she's got another jacket. She's like super smart. Thanks, Megan. Dan, what about yourself? Running and training.
The opposite. Megan represents the sensible way to do the Dragon's Back race. One of the reasons I always turned up in shorts is that I didn't have any waterproof trousers.
I remember that.
I, very sporty, started running out of uni, was getting further and further, got to marathons, but I'm 6'3" and 100 kilos, so I'm not liable to do very fast marathon times. and always liked being out, having the view from mountains. And I went to a talk by a guy who'd written a book about 100 races to run. No, 100 races to run before you die, something like that. And one of the ones he talked about was the Dragon's Back race, and it just planted a little seed. And I signed up to do it in 2017 on a whim, really. Did possibly the most naive attempt at the Dragon's Back race ever. I turned up with a normal rucksack and some little ankle socks. I liked the event team probably laughed at me on the start line. And I did relatively well. I got to the end of day 3, which is supposed to be the point where you're fine, but my feet were not fine at the end of day 3. So I just stopped at the end of day 3, quite sensibly, I think. But I had to come back and try and finish it with sensible shoes and a bag that I could actually drink from, and so on and so forth.
And what was your so as well as this, because I do remember speaking to you, and you had a lot of road running in your legs, but also and other sports and activities.
Yeah, I've done just a lot of sports, general, bit of jack of all trades really when it comes to sports. I do a bit of everything.
Cool, brilliant. Okay, so actually, two slightly different kind of avenues of progression there, but culminated in the same result. So to Megan, what aspect of training and preparation did you focus on the most, would you say, in the run up to your event?
Probably just long weekends in the mountains. So for pretty much from like September the year before, so the event was in May at that point, so September the year before, I was probably spending 3 weekends a month over in the mountains, which was great fun. I loved it, but most of my training was just about long days in the mountains, time on feet, getting to know the route, and if I wasn't getting over to Snowdonia, to the Brecon Beacons or something similar, or even the Malvern Hills on my doorstep, which aren't quite mountains but at least have some hills.
I seem to remember that you hooked up with quite a few folk, didn't you? So as well as maybe doing some of the organised recce's, I remember you talking about like weekends away with this crazy bunch of folk that you met. And
yeah, a few are on the calls. Hello guys.
Brilliant. Thanks, Megan. And to Dan, well, you've kind of alluded to yourself. You've alluded already that possibly you didn't focus enough on certain aspects prior to 2017. But what about 2019? What aspect of training did you focus on the most in the run of 2019?
I think, my focus was largely on correcting the errors from 2017. I live in London, which makes doing the sort of sensible hill training that Megan was doing quite tricky. But there was a lot of stuff a lot of official training stuff that you could do running up to 2019, which was really helpful. So I went to there was a Dragon's Back race boot camp that they put on. So I went to that, which was mainly talks from past winners largely, but it was very useful in terms of getting you thinking about what you needed to do, or what I needed to do in terms of correcting mistakes that I've made the previous time. I did a lot of.
Were they mistakes in training or in the race itself, or?
No, it was much more kit and sort of preparation focused. So up to leading up to 2019, sort of following the boot camp, which was quite early on, I did quite a lot of sort of testing. So most of my running is commuting to work, but I try and do a lot and try and, so it's quite good to keep running sort of like some of the Facebook groups talk about it, running early in the morning, running on tired legs, this sort of thing was all quite good. Brilliant. Preparation. But for me, a lot of it was trying to put into place, one of the people at the boot camp had recommended waterproof socks as the way she always did it. And it was Sabrina Vergy, whose word you should probably take as useful. So I bought some waterproof socks and tried them on my commute to work, but I never really found a pair that worked for me. Found some shoes, some gaiters that I liked, some longer compression socks that also solved some of the foot issues I had from the first time round. So a lot of mine was sort of getting used to running with proper kit, essentially.
Brilliant.
And then the Recce events I did I think 3 or 4 of them, 3 or 4 of the days with you, and that was essentially for a Londoner the best way to get out in the mountains, which I think was probably the most useful training I did.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I do remember one of the events where you swooped in about 15 minutes late in a taxi, having just got an early train up from London. It was like something out of James Bond. It was brilliant. But yeah, massive.
I think it was 2 or 3 where I turned up quite late in a taxi from London.
Massive commitment and you know, a lot of trial and experimenting, you know, real, just using stuff for real and seeing if it works for you. Okay, thanks both. So to Megan, a high experience and a low experience from your event. Can you remember?
So it's funny you put the Rinogs up because the Rinogs were my nemesis right up until race day. I think Kate had to listen to me for hours and hours going on about how terrified I was of them, because every recce I'd done had either been like bad weather, the most horrendous bad weather, or you know, we couldn't find the right route off, and it just, knew that it was the one place I was in bad danger of being timed out. So I was just I was happy with the terrain, but just nervous about the time. So I think my high point was when I got over the Rinogs on day 2. I gave like a little cheer to myself and was got a bit overexcited running the long road section back in after them, and probably destroyed my legs slightly. But yeah, just getting off the Rinogs was probably my highest point, because I just breathed a sigh of relief at that point. I thought, right, I know I can finish now.
Great.
Yeah.
So, well, at least they weren't a low point, but did you have a low point?
On the actual race, probably the last day, coming off the back of the Black Mountains, I had bad tendinitis by that point, and so pretty much the whole of the last day was excruciating. And
I think I have a photo coming up that this will remind you. I did ask Megan if she was happy for me to share any photos. She was like, yeah, it's fine. What, even this finished one? Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. It was pretty painful. I remember coming into the last checkpoint, and I think you were there. I think Phil was there as well. And I dropped down into the checkpoint and just went woo-hoo, and burst into tears. But you shoved me out the other end, and I got to the end.
And have you taken any learning from those points, or you've just put them in your experience bank, or you know?
I think in experience, down in the experience bank, I struggle to find, apart from just, I mean, I put in as much time on feet in the mountains as I probably could have done not living in the mountains. So I struggled to see what I could have done fully differently to get over the tendinitis thing, because that's just a usage side. But I think just knowing you can get through it, it wasn't the end of the world. I wasn't broken. I got to the end, and just like taking it and getting to the end, really, and just, I guess, to some extent accepting some of the pain that comes with it.
Yeah, brilliant acceptance. Brilliant. Thanks, Megan. Dan, highs and lows for yourself, sir.
From 2017, the low was definitely the second half of day 3. I always had this thing about you were supposed to get to the end of day 3, and then you stood a better chance of finishing. And so getting to the cut-off point, the checkpoint on day 3 at just over halfway, was sort of a key point. And I remember being really relieved to get there, but with my feet being in a bad state, the second half of day 3, as it was getting darker and it was clear that I was not going to be able to get all the way through, was pretty dark.
And did you? I was going to say, learning. I suppose the learning that you took from that, which we've already talked about, I guess, you know, looking after the feet, changing socks, shoes, finding what works for you. Yeah,
definitely. It was just about learning. I was very, very naive going into 2017. It was learning how to correct that and make sure that your feet don't get torn apart early on, because the early terrain is brutal and very easy to get a little niggle in your foot, and a little niggle in your foot will become a big niggle in your foot by the end of it, because it's you're just on your feet the entire time. So it's just about. I think one of the things I found is that it's very easy to look at an event like this and think of, I'd done a lot of sort of obstacle races where you charge through the mud and you think, oh, running around in fields is fun, but it's very different doing a short thing in the mud to doing a long thing in the mud to doing 5, 6 days of long things
you're
in
selling
the mud.
That's your new tagline, Shane. A long thing in the mud. And some rocks.
But yeah, it makes the need to practice looking after your feet a lot more significant. I don't think I really had a low in 2019. I basically enjoyed the whole thing. My feet held up fine. The day 3 camp is very cold. If we could put some heaters in for the day 3 camp, that would be great. I thought that was the same in both times I've done it. I had a bit of a panic on day 5. I'm not much of a morning person, but once it was clear I was running quite well, I would start quite late. And on day 5, no, it can't have been day 5, must have been day 4, because they do a racing start on day 5. Day 4, I set off, and then I must have been about 400 meters from the start when Galen Reynolds and Jim Mann flew past me, and I thought, oh, I got the timing slightly wrong. Am I going to be really pushing it for the cut-off? And I had this panicked feeling that I'd just accidentally slipped up. So I felt a little bit anxious for a while, but that was about as bad as it got.
Okay.
And day high, probably the finishing, obviously the high. But actually a bit on day 4, just before you hit the road section at the end of day 4, there's a little sort of river valley that you run through. And some people sort of have to hobble through it because they feel quite bad by that point. But I'd just done a nice section chatting to somebody and was feeling pretty good, and absolutely flew down it, ran through it, and it was probably the nicest bit of running in the whole thing for me. I still look back at that quite fondly. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to for later this year, is running that bit again.
I remember you flying down that in the Recce as well. I was like, there goes Dan, bye. Brilliant, thanks Dan. To Megan, if you entered again, what 2 things might you do differently?
Definitely pack a lot more salty food. I ended up like every day bribing and swapping people, because I trained through winter and packed lots of like nice chocolate and stuff that you really enjoy on a cold day. And of course it was all like, it was absolutely boiling the week we did it, and I just couldn't eat any of it. So I remember sitting in checkpoints like swapping people like you do with school lunches.
Brilliant. Can I have your cream egg and you can have my salted cashew?
Yeah, exactly. So, definitely would do that. That would be my main thing, really. I think the rest of it, there's not a whole lot I would have changed.
So camping, Megan, what was your top golden rule when you're camping each night?
I was always told admin first, so I forced myself to do all my admin, whilst my kindly tent mates that finished every day a number of hours ahead of me got me chips and food and brought it to the tent while I was faffing and adminning in the tent. And I do all of that and get my feet sorted before I allow myself to go for my second round of food.
That's good discipline. Good discipline.
Yeah.
How much food and drink did you eat of an evening? Were you kind of a full meal girl, or like lots of little meals?
I was definitely a round of chips as soon as I came in around sort of 7 o'clock, and then probably once I'd sort of eaten that while I was adminning, I'd then go and have probably more of a sit down food and cups of tea and various other things, and then an early night really. But I mean, I'm pretty tiny. I'm 4'11", so make the calculations you want. My calorie burn's probably not as much as everybody else's, and I was eating for a small family.
And how many hours did you have in camp of an evening to do all your chores, your admin and your eating?
So I was in general getting in between 7 and 8 each evening, which I was outstanded by, because I thought when I signed up I was going to be like pounding to let me in just before 11 o'clock. So that I'd planned and packed as if I was going to be arriving 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and kind of packed emergency food I could have if there wasn't any food still open, so I could get to bed quickly. Thankfully, I never needed it, but yeah, I think in general, it was a case of you're awake for a couple of hours, but then as soon as it's dark, you're heading to bed because you're pretty knackered.
Gets cold. Thanks, Megan. To Dan, Dan, you prompted me to kind of delve into this topic because it became, something that you learned about and you developed some good skills. So, what was your golden rule for when you're in camp at night?
I think I was conscious about it because people ask about it, but it was just probably the thing I changed the least between 2017 and 2019. The thing that I did change was that I sleep quite late, and conscious of not wanting to disturb campmates. There were a couple of times when I was sort of shuffling around in the dark, so I tried to get sort of my bed out and everything out as soon as I arrived. And the bit that really worked was packing my camp bag with the bits I needed at the top. So I'd pre-make a recovery, like a protein drink and a protein bar and all the camp clothes that I had at the top. So whenever I got into camp, I'd open the bag, drink, eat them, get dry clothes on, get recovery compression stuff on, get my bed out so that I could then crawl into it when I came back. And then I'd go off to the tent, the sort of main social tent, and just eat and drink as much as I could for as long as I could until I felt like going to bed.
Yeah. So how many meals do you think you consumed of an evening? How many rounds of chips?
As many as I could get. I don't think I ever really got to the chips. I think I started too late. I always arrived around for dinner time, so I was straight into the food.
Yeah.
It depended how spicy it was, because I'm a sort of a bit of a spice wuss. So I used to try and get in a couple of meals. I'd also take some extra stuff. I think I always had a pack of biltong, which was quite good for those who aren't vegetarian, as a meat addition. And then I'd normally have a sort of meal when food opened up, and then I'd sit around and eat some more, and then I'd normally go again once or twice.
Brilliant.
Pudding, and I normally had another round of main course as well, because my calorie requirements are significantly higher than Megan.
Your most loved, appreciated bit of kit or food, Megan?
So a couple of things. I could not have survived without my poles. Anybody that's debating running with poles or not running with poles, to me they were an absolute lifesaver, especially day 5 when my legs were absolutely shot. Kind of skiing down any hills with them was fantastic. So yeah, I'm a big advocate for poles. I know there are people on both sides of that camp, but I found them really useful. I think pretty much I fell in love with rock lights as my shoe of choice, and couldn't have done it without them. And yeah, tinned pineapple at the checkpoint. I packed a couple of them.
I remember saying that, yes.
Yeah, it was like on that hot week, it was just like something from heaven.
Yeah, that's a good tinned fruit, actually, because fruit might be something that people miss during that week. So great answers, thanks, Megan. To Dan, most useful, well-loved bit of kit and or food for you yourself?
Given that my kit completely transformed between 2017 and 2019, I could give you about 8 answers for this.
Give me 2.
A bag you can drink from. It was very important for me. I ran it with a normal rucksack the first time, which was admittedly very stupid. But yeah, I had and I drink a lot, so I had one with drinks on the strap and in the back with a straw. That was hugely useful, and no doubt kept me in much better shape, especially given how warm it was. But the thing I was actually going to flag was the socks, obviously, all the gaiters that kept my feet dry. But actually, the ones I was going for were these. They're camp shoes. When I did it the first time, I just thought that I would just use some spare running trainers that I had in my bag as camp shoes. But they were so uncomfortable that it made getting around camp a real faff. These are insulated slip-on shoes, and they just make going in and out the tent and walking around the camp so much easier.
Great stuff. This is your final question, Megan. If you were down there on the start line again in Conwy Castle, what piece of advice would you whisper in your ear?
Probably just to enjoy it. I had a fantastic time. Lots of friends that did it. Get to know people along the way. Obviously, there's some people that run it really competitively that are going to be on a slightly different mindset. I was running it to finish it and to enjoy it. So yeah, just enjoy it, make the most of it, because you have to go back to work the next week.
Please. Dan, what would you whisper to yourself starting on the start line again?
So I will be doing it again. And I think my focus will be on, generally the advice I say to myself is just to keep going, just keep moving, try and keep making progress the entire time. So, if you are going to stop, make sure that you're stopping and drinking, stopping and eating, refueling. If you're not, just keep going, just keep moving, because you'll get there eventually. And I think for me, Shane has this bit about only the top 1 or 2% are racing it, and then why is it called the Dragon's Back race? For me, it's always been this bit about racing to get to camp that night, so you've got more time to recover. So I think the bit I'll be trying to correct from 2019 is that I probably spent too long sitting around at the checkpoints, just because I quite enjoyed the atmosphere. It was nice seeing people come in, talking to them. It was nice sitting down, but I probably spent too long there. And if I think about it, not only would I have finished earlier and gained a few points up the up the finishing table, but also I'd have had a lot more time in camp, where you get exactly the same cool atmosphere, but you get more time to recover because you can put your dry clothes on and lie down, so on and so forth. So my aim will be getting to camp. Just keep moving in order to get to camp as quick as you can, so that you can just start recovering as soon as you can and go again.
That's great. Some great advice there. Enjoy it and keep moving. I'll take that too. That's brilliant. Megan and Dan, to both of you, thank you for your insights there. Take you through a little fun quiz. It's only 10 questions. Have we been reading the information? What do we know about our preparation for the race? And just a few fun facts along the way.
Question 1. There you go. What year? And Shane, you have to do this as well. And if you don't get full marks, there's trouble. What year was the first Dragon's Back race run? No. It's all been there. All the information is there. Is within your kind of spheres of knowledge, folks. Question number 2. So you have to see my glamorous assistant is paying attention. Excellent. Question number 2. What is the name for the first checkpoint on day 1? There's a little clue. Just there to the left. And you get that bonus point, and bonus points are really important if you know the Welsh name. We'll take a colloquial name if you know that as well, but the bonus point is going to be for the Welsh name, folks. Right. So what is the summit name of the first checkpoint on day 1, and what is its given Welsh name? 2 points available there. Question number 3. Oh, I should have said there's 20 points in total if I didn't mention at the beginning. Can you name 4 items from the mandatory checklist that begin with W? Question number 4. Which mapping company produces the unique Dragon's Back race maps? And there's a little sample for you. And they are a thing of beauty. They are amazing. And for your bonus point, what scale are these maps printed to? What scale are these maps printed to? And it's one of the recognized, there's 3 kind of recognized scales in the UK for mapping, and they use one of them. So it's not like a random like inch to a mile or anything odd. Question number 5. What is the name of the market town that runners pass through as a support point on day 3 on the event? What is the name of the market town that runners pass through as a support point on day 3 of the event? And I'll give you an extra clue, actually. It's the previous capital of Wales. Ooh, how's your Welsh knowledge, folks? Right. Tim, give it your best shot. Question number 6. What is this and when might you use it? And we've weighted this with such importance and relevance that it has got a hefty 3 points to it, people. Question number 7. On registration day, what time does the mandatory participant briefing start? Fantastic. Question number 8. Nearly there. What is the name of the highest mountain reached on day 3? And for 2 bonus points, what does this name mean in Welsh, and what other name might it be known by? This is like proper geeking out here. Question number 9. What is the maximum allowed weight for your overnight kit bag? Number 10, question number 10. And can you name 2 national parks that you travel through during this event? Question, answer time, and this is all about honesty. So we obviously trust you all implicitly. So question 1, the answer was 1992. Thank you very much, Dave, for coming along. Well done, team. We look forward to seeing you on the start line. Question number 2, Conwy Mountain, as it's colloquially known as, or its actual Welsh name is Mynydd y Dref, which means mountain of the town. Mountain of the town, hence Conwy Mountain, translation thereof.
Can you remind us on the points on each one, please, Ross?
Yeah, so the first one was 1 point. Question 1 for 1 point. Question 2 is 1 point for Conwy Mountain and a bonus point if you have Mynydd y Dref. Question number 3 is the W's worth 4 points. Waterproof jackets, waterproof trousers, whistles, water bottle, water pen, or a watch. Right, question number 4. Question number 4. The first is worth 1 point, and the answer is Harvey's Maps. I love Harvey's Maps. They're the best. And it is, the scale is 1 to 40,000. So 1 centimetre on your map is the equivalent to 40,000 centimetres in the real world, because we all measure our daily life in centimetres, as we all know. So 1 to 40,000. So a point for the first part and a point for the bonus point. Question number 5. Question number 5. Machynlleth. So best guess, and you can see it if you look really closely on the back. There's little clues on the road sign if you've got really good vision. But is Machynlleth? Indeed. It's a good point raised there, Stu, but making sure that if you've got a compass, it's got the right Roma scale. Question number 6, 3 points here. If something goes a little bit awry, you'll probably want to pop this out of your bag, stick your warm layers on and snuggle down till you see the man with the Cyberman ears arrive with his smiling face and a sticky bath to make you feel happy. Fantastico. So that was worth 3 points. Question number 7. It's 6 o'clock, 1800 hours, 6 o'clock in the evening. 6 o'clock for 1 point. Question number 8. So the name of the highest point on day 3 is Cadair Idris, which is, well, one of the translations, the main translation for it would be the chair of Idris, or the giant's chair. Idris being a previous prince of Wales. And Penygada, which is the top of the chair, is the actual summit point. Penigada, the summit point. And you get a bonus 2 points if you got those cheeky 2 bonus answers there. So this is a total of 3 points, 1 point for the main question and 2 bonus points available. Question number 9, 15 kilos. And the final question of the Snowdonia National Park and the Brecon Beacons National Park.
A question to you, Shane, about food. Generally, what kind of food will there be on offer in the evenings at camp? And also, actually, it has said at checkpoints as well. So it might be good to clarify the status of food provision at support points as well as evening camp. So thanks, Ben, for a question there.
Okay, so the easy thing, there's no food at the support point. The only thing that we provide there is water. If the weather's really appalling, we might do hot water. At the overnight camp, we provide what we call our finisher snacks, which is kind of a nutritious soup and chips and cake. And then there's an evening meal. So I've picked up on some feedback actually this evening. I noticed it, but also from our events generally, that sometimes our slower finishers, the chips in the past had stopped about 8, 9 p.m. So they'd miss the chips when they finished. So we're going to change that, and we're going to basically run 2 menus as late as possible into the evening. So we want chips always to be available for all finishers. That's one of the little changes that we're making for the event. In terms of evening meal, there's a kind of example menu on the website. So if you just go to the essential information, click catering, I think, and it's there. We are planning to improve the menu. So we are working with some new caterers to improve what we do. So watch this space. What we will do normally about 2 months out from the event, we will publish the final menu for the event. So what you get in the evening is a main meal. It might be something like lasagna or, you know, a mild vegetable chili, and then there'll be lots of different accompaniments, kind of a choice of more chips. Believe me, salty chips are the most favorite thing going, baked potatoes, rice. There'll always be things like side salads. There's always a dessert. And we appreciate that food is so important for everybody. So there's some real effort going to improve that this year.
Brilliant, thanks Shane. A question about kind of daylight hours in September versus May, and how well the question actually says how will that affect operations, but I'm not sure whether that means event logistics and general operations or my experience on the hill as a runner.
When we did the 2012 edition, that was done in September. So it's not something we're unused to. It will certainly mean that the slower finishers will be out probably, or they risk being out in the dark. I can't remember exactly what time it gets dark at the moment, but yeah, darkness slows people down. So starting promptly is important.
I'm just looking up quickly. So we've got probably starts getting light at about 6:30 in the morning, kind of twilight, and sunset is about 8 o'clock at night. So dark by 9. Tim was talking about her getting into camp between sort of 7 and 8 in the evening. That seems to be, quite fits in quite nicely with sort of sunset time. So Megan was probably out for 13 hours, 14 hours.
Yeah, Kate, I've just checked because we have a big spreadsheet with sunset, sunrise, and sunset is twilight is about 9 p.m. in the beginning of September. So I've double checked that's what it is.
Cool.
Like I set off, I was literally probably the first or second person out of camp on some of the days because I knew I was going to be in the slower camp, and I knew that would allow me to get in for 7 or 8 o'clock. So I'd recommend for those of you that think you are slower, like get up early and get out. It will help.
A question about mandatory route sections. If you mistakenly stray from a mandatory route section and you make an effort to get back on, will you be disqualified?
No. So it happens every day. We're not in the game of disqualifying people for accidents. That's not the intention of the mandatory route. What gets you into trouble is if you leave the mandatory route and rejoin it at a new location and you gain an advantage. That will definitely get you penalized. You might get time penalty, you might get strike. We can talk about the strikes another time. What will get you disqualified is any hint of cheating. So if we get any sense that the mistake was not accidental and you were doing it to gain an advantage, you just get disqualified. But no, if you make a genuine mistake, you won't get disqualified. What we'd strongly suggest you do, if it's at all practical and safe, is that you return and rejoin the route where you left it.
It's like, snacks weigh a lot, and with the slower participants, they're going to be out there a lot longer, so they're going to be needing to eat more food out on the course. So I was just a bit concerned that with the reduction in the pack weight, how is that going to impact the slower competitors? Because they're not going to be able to put as many snacks into their overnight bag to pull out each day.
So Jane, there's no reduction in the weight of the overnight bag since 2015. So
Okay.
It's been the same. It's 15 kilograms.
Okay.
What has changed is the weight of and size of the bag that goes to the support point. We've done a bit of testing. You can still fit plenty of food into it. There's no doubt part of the challenge of the event is packing carefully, choosing lightweight kit, choosing your food carefully. But also remember, you are going to go through some towns. So day 3, you go through Machynlleth at the beginning of the day, in the middle of the day, all the shops are open and lots of people have used that as a purposeful resupply point. If you think very carefully about what you're going to do, you'll go past those shops and minutes later arrive at your support point. So you could do some shopping and then fill your support bag with food. So there's kind of, if you're clever about it, there are ways to game the system.
A question about litter that runners generate out of their, food and drink that they're carrying in their packs, and the litter that they generate, do they have to keep that on their person versus litter that they create from food and drink consumed at the support points out of their support bags?
So historically, we have insisted that you arrive at the finish with your entire rubbish for the day. So you can't dump any rubbish anywhere, support point or in a bin. We're actually going to change that rule. I think it has already been changed. So you can deposit your rubbish at support point or in a bin along the route if that's appropriate. But of course, we have a total zero tolerance policy to deliberate littering.
Including kind of organic fruit peel and
everything. Yeah, throwing a banana over your shoulder will get you disqualified. That would be called deliberate littering. There will be no second chances for that kind of behaviour. A couple of people have asked me about with some direct messages, and that was information about day 5 and day 6.
Yeah.
Just give people a little update on where we are with that.
Good idea.
We know exactly what we want to do. I would say 85–90% of that route has been approved by the relevant authorities and landowners, etc. However, we have 1 or 2 bits of ground that we need to do some final work on. And we also, before we finalize a route, it always gets test run. And we actually want to do a test run of all of the day 5. So start at day 5 all the way through day 6 to finish at Cardiff Castle. That is part of our own systems and processes. That hasn't happened because of lockdown. And actually a lot of the agencies we deal with, like the National Park, Welsh Water, seem to have furloughed most of their staff. And it's any decision that would normally be answered in a couple of days on email has taken literally months and months. So things are just going very slowly. We don't actually think that's a problem because nobody can get out in Recce at the moment, including ourselves. But we hope to finalise all of that kind of over the next month or 2. We'll see what happens. Final question.
race numbers that we attach to our bags and our person, how many are given to runners at registration? So, you know, what if you lose one, tear one, etc.?
You get one for each day. So you can put a brand new number on each day if you like.
Nice.
And you get one for your front and one for your rucksack. The rucksack one must always be visible, whatever. And the front one is fair enough to cover it, obscure it with a waterproof if that's what needs to happen.
Brilliant. Fantastic. We'll wrap up kind of direct questions there, and really appreciate Shane taking time to kind of answer those questions. Obviously, you know, there's great resource around us. We've got the Dragons Back Participants Facebook page, and there's a great wealth of information that flows through there constantly. Lots of people with lots of experience and good chat and advice and banter. So that's a great place to go looking. The website for the Dragons Back race is full of guidance, notes and articles. You just have to delve a little bit deeper into that website and you will find some really good information. And also each other and ourselves, you know, get to know folk, swap contact details with folk, make friends with them on social media channels, and just get talking and sharing. And also, when restrictions allow us to go further, higher, for longer, you know, that's when all the kind of the ground training that you're doing at the moment will kind of really kick in, and you'll start to kind of feel what it's like to be out for longer hours, and make those kit adjustments and start learning from, you know, more experience that you'll gain this year through your training.